What if I told you that there are four levers in your law firm today that you can pull or push on? Actually, not even you. You hire someone else who's going to be ultimately free for you. And they pull or push on those levers, and your business cranks out another $100,000 in profit. Would you not believe me? Well, listen to this episode with Nermin Jasani of Wildly Successful Lawyers. Yes, Wildly Successful Lawyers. And she will share those four levers that you can have her or you pull on to produce multiple additional six figures in profit, not revenue, in profit. It's ridiculously simple, but somebody's got to do it. So listen to Nermin. She will share with you how she does it with her clients. You're going to love it. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to the GLF podcast. I have an amazing guest with me here today. Nermin Jasani is an attorney, a Wall Street attorney who decided to, after working on Wall Street and doing, I think that in your past, forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but you negotiated penalties down, like regulatory penalties.
Yeah, for my clients. Yeah. If they
And
got hit, if they got in
if
trouble.
if they got in trouble, and I think that kind of got old, and you decided to help other law firm owners grow their wealth, grow their income by six figures. And I gotta start by asking you this question: what makes you qualified
Yeah.
helping law firm owners
Yeah.
to do this? And such a relevant thing, right? Like adding six figures to your personal income, not revenue, to your personal income. I think everyone would be like, you caught my attention with that messaging. I'm like, how do you
Yeah.
do that? And why are you qualified? Why should I listen to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Sasha. So, yes, you're right. I am a former Wall Street attorney. I had my own firm. And when I had my own firm, this was before, consultants like me existed. This is before, like, there was all this SEO happening for law firms, even smaller law firms. So, when I had my own firm, I had no idea what I was doing. I charged by the hour, which was a really big mistake. And I talk about that pretty openly. I didn't even understand what marketing was. And I didn't know that I should be seeking out mentors who are doing like more than I was in my area and ask them for advice. The only sort of role models I had at the time were partners at these really big law firms. And that's basically like quote unquote who my competition was. So I had no idea that there were things that I could do to get more clients and to not only get more clients, but also ask them to refer other people to me and how to actually charge based on fixed fee packages instead of hourly rates. So all of these things I didn't know. And when I went into my own law firm, it sort of felt really overwhelming. And I was like, what am I doing? Yes, this is nice because I have clients who are my own and I can bill and I can make money and I can survive. But I also left a ton of money on the table. And part of what caught my interest in wanting to advise other law firms was me just not wanting them to make the same mistakes that I did, right? Like it was really genuinely like, don't do what I did. Like there was so many ways that you can increase your revenue without having to seem sleazy or practice, law that you don't want to practice or work with people that you don't want to work with. Like there really are very simple things that you can do that can like multi-fold increase the revenue on your bottom line and ultimately your take home. And it's not magic. It's like really simple things that you just have to make the time to do and not be sort of shy. And I'm an introvert, like very much introverted. I have to have alone time, but I also know when I need to turn on. So this is especially for you if you find yourself feeling like you don't like going to these networking things or you don't like asking people for help, then trust me, I've been there. I am that person. Like you can totally do this.
You look young, and yet you say like this is back in the day when there were no podcasts, and I'm thinking like the
Literally,
19th
there were no
century.
podcasts in 2010. Like I don't even think Tim Ferriss was around in 2010.
You're right. We had audiobooks, but I don't think there were. Like, I don't think I knew the word podcast back then. So this is
Yeah.
15 years ago. It's a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, it was 15 years ago when I just graduated from law school in
Uh-huh.
2010. And I set up my own firm in 13, 14, 15, like right around 13, 14 is right when I had it. And for you, you are right. I am probably on the younger side and I have really great genes. So I tend to look a little bit younger as well, but I'm actually approaching 40. So maybe not as young as some people may think, but beyond the age part, it's that I have experienced so many different things in such a short, condensed period of time. In the last 15 years, I've had like 6 careers, and I talk about that pretty openly. So when you have all these different things that you've done, you tend to sort of have this, water hose experience of life where you're just being overwhelmed with information. And I've had the ability to really sit and take all of how all these different industries are run, whether it's a services firm, a products firm, a manufacturing firm, a tech firm. Like I've had experience in all of those. And there are some things that are true for all of them, which is every single one of those businesses needs customers, and customers don't know about them until you do marketing. And that is true no matter what kind of business you run.
Sure. I find it super interesting because you and I think about this the same way. So I operate a marketing company, but I'm constantly looking outward for new information. So, for example, one of my top podcasts is called Acquiring Minds. It's about acquiring businesses. Every guest, and they have like 2 podcast episodes come out every week, every guest talks about a different industry and
Mm-hmm.
the challenges of that business and how they acquired it and what it is that they did to make it successful. Or at times there are crushing stories of how they bought a business, borrowed $5 million from SBA, only to be bankrupt 9 months later. Those
Yep.
also happen, which, like, I'm definitely not an expert, but when you look at Bible, there are stories of like the right things to do and the wrong things to do, right? So it's kind of like with business, you want to hear the right things to do and you want to know also what not to do. So and I
Yep.
listen to plethora of other podcasts and read books that are not just on marketing. And we work with law firms. They're not just about legal business, but about other things, about other perspectives, because I think it really helps you become a more well-rounded business person, whether you do consulting or you run your own firm or whatever it is that you do. It just really helps to not do this, which I find that most, but definitely not all, most specialists turn business owners,
Mm-hmm.
e.g., lawyers, because they're
Mm-hmm.
specialists first, then law firm owners second.
Yep.
When you do that, more often than not, there's somewhat of a tunnel vision. I don't mean like 2 parallel lines. Maybe you go out like this, maybe you do see 90 degrees, maybe you see 120 degrees, but there's no 360. So it's interesting that
Yeah.
you went through 6 careers in a short span of time.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And I started a lot of businesses and I was part of a lot of businesses and it was honestly a lot of fun, but it's also one of those things that you do when you're in your 20s, right? Your younger 20s where you're like, I don't want to do this, maybe I'll try something else. And you genuinely do try it and you're like, yeah, I don't think this is the thing for me. I mean, there was a point, Sasha, where believe it or not, I was with a construction crew in LA tearing down houses because there was a point where I thought I wanted to be a general contractor and run teams and take these beautiful old homes in LA and flip them and make them new and really like spent like probably 4 to 6 months like pursuing that as a career trajectory, possibly.
So was this like a temporary career ADD?
I think that's a great way of explaining it. Yeah, I think so. And again, I think it was just one of those times where I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do
Mhm.
by looking at a whole bunch of things that I didn't want and sort of coming on
Sure.
that as like a process of like, elimination basically. And like, I don't have that as a career path at this point. What I'm doing right now is absolutely my career path for a very long time. I don't see myself ever not advising law firms. But I think for me, it was just the 20s of like, I wanted to be a lawyer, but it wasn't what I wanted, what I thought it was going to be. So I was trying on a whole bunch of different things. I mean, it was absolutely, career ADD for sure.
Do you have in your family, your parents or siblings or cousins, do you have multiple business owners there?
Yeah, everyone in my family is a business owner.
Got
No
it.
one
So
is a
that makes
corporate
sense.
employee. Yeah. I would have been the only corporate employee had I stuck it out with my Wall Street jobs. I would have definitely been the only one in the family who was a corporate employee. But everyone, even in my extended family, and for those who are not sure what my background is, my parents are Indian, they're immigrants. A lot of Indians are, business owners, especially when they immigrate to the US. You see the typical gas station, Dunkin' Donut kind of thing. Like that was what I grew up with. And that has been my role model for many years, which is you own your own business.
So when you started your corporate law job, like how long did it take for you to figure out that that's just not how you're built?
Pretty quick, but I think I was in denial about
Mhm.
it, and I definitely spent a lot of time with a therapist, like trying to figure out what was wrong with me and why I didn't love this thing that I had spent so many years in law school doing. Right, like going through and taking the LSAT, and then going through law school and doing law school applications, and then doing law school exams, and then sitting for the bar, and then doing the character and fitness. Like I had put so much energy and effort into this thing that I wanted to be my identity, being a lawyer, being a practicing attorney. And when I actually started practicing on Wall Street, I did not love it. I thought it was going to be like sexy M&A deals. I thought it was going to be like,
You
you
thought you were
know,
going to be in an episode of Suits.
yes, exactly. And that is
And,
so not what reality is.
and no one
It's
is.
nowhere
No
near
one.
that.
No,
Nowhere near that. And my nephew even says, he's like, "Oh, I think it would be cool to be an attorney like on Suits." I'm like, "It's not real.
it's not real.
Don't even use that as a model. Like it's not
Yeah,
real. Ask
it's
me.
just a
It's not
show.
real." Yeah.
It is just a show. So how interesting. Did your parents push you into this direction of becoming an attorney?
No, they didn't. They definitely wanted me to have some sort of a business background, but definitely did not push me into law. In fact, they were like, "Do you know that's an extra 3 years of school? Like, you want to be in school for that long?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be in school for a little longer. No big
Hmm.
deal." So it definitely wasn't a push from them, but there definitely was a business emphasis. So even when I was working corporate, my dad was like, "How much are you making? You can make that and more if you ran your own business. Come back to Atlanta. We'll give you a business that you can run and you'll make just as much." Loving parents, and I just had to figure out my own way of doing it.
And they wanted you nearby, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
I now live 3 miles away from every member of my immediate family. So yeah,
got it. So it all worked out.
it did.
It all worked out for everyone,
Yeah.
especially your parents. Right? I know
Yes.
the Indian.
Especially my parents. Yes.
Well,
Especially.
I know a lot. So I grew up in the area, kind of here. So I immigrated here when I was 15. I'm
Hmm.
originally from Russia, and the school district that I was in, we had a lot of Indian kids. So I got to interact a lot with them, and I just saw how the culture is. Like parents, if possible, will keep their kids 3 blocks away, but 3 miles will also be okay. But if it's okay,
Yes.
like you can stay under the same roof also, we can get a
Yes.
house that big for sure. So I
Yes.
saw that. Yeah, I saw that for sure.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
so very interesting. So now you've been doing this consulting. Do you call it consulting or how do you refer to this business?
I call it consulting because for me, the big difference between consulting and coaching is going to be a coach is just going to ask you questions. With us, we implement the solutions. So if we say, okay, we can save you, two people's overhead plus help you recover, some leads, help you get some reviews faster. If we automate some things, then we are actually building the automations for that law firm specifically. And we're not just going through and building like, sort of typical ones. We're making them customized to that specific law firm. So that is like one way of doing it. But the whole point is like we do the work, because what I've noticed is if you tell an attorney to do something,
Not gonna happen.
they will give you every excuse as to
It's not
why
gonna
they
happen.
couldn't do it.
Of
They got
course.
busy, there was a deadline,
Yep.
somebody quit, and here I am sitting 3 weeks later, and I'm like, I still don't have this thing that I need to move forward. So really consulting specifically, but consulting from a side of execution.
Yeah.
Like we're helping you execute the things that you say that you're going to do that you never do, and we're just making it happen.
That's awesome. And I'll let you in on a secret, but perhaps you already knew this. It's not about lawyers and it's not about law firm owners. It's just overwhelming majority of people who start their businesses, they're specialists in that trade, right? So lawyers are specialists at law who become entrepreneurs. They're not really entrepreneurs. They just start that one business, right? And usually
Yep.
keep that business forever, right? And the comfort zone is actually practicing law. It's not
Yep.
practicing business, it's practicing law. And then you tell them like, you need to do this, and that, which has nothing to do with their cases.
Yep.
And obviously, it's much easier to be in the comfort zone, which is doing what you are trained to do and have done for many years, which is practicing law, doing cases, meeting with clients, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, all of those things that the consultant would tell you to do is like, it's not going to happen. Likely, it's not going to happen. So it's very cool that it's not even a consulting company. It's like consulting and implementation. So you figure out the problem, you design a solution, and then you actually build and implement solution, which is much more than consultants usually do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'll give you like a really specific example here that definitely plays in with marketing as well. So, one thing I always tell people is if you want to make more money, here's the simplest thing you can do: charge more. And as soon as I say that, there's so much resistance, there's so much pushback. And my answer is always, okay, look, if you are going to do, $1,000 for an estate plan, right? You start doing some marketing. All of a sudden, you have, let's say, 100 new leads who come in. And now you're going to try to like sell your package to all 100 of those people. And now you have to hire people to do all the work for which you just got in all those amazing leads. And the problem with that is you just made more money, but then you lost more money by having to hire more people. So my solution is always charge more money, still get the 100 leads in, but you're making more because you charged more, right? Like it's really that simple. You take that $1,000 that you were going to charge for an estate plan, make it 1,500, make it 2,000, make it 3,000, whatever that number is. If you increase what you are charging, you will automatically end up making more, even if the 100 don't become a client. Even if it's 50 who become a client, the good news is that you didn't maybe have to hire 3 new people to do the work for the 50 new clients that you got. You hired 1 new person, which means you could get to still keep more money at the end of the day. And that I think is one of the most important things when you're looking at it from a business perspective is not just what you're bringing in, but what you're keeping at the end of the day. And my goal is always like all attorneys, especially if you own your own practice, you have to pay yourself the proper salary. I see way too many attorneys who are like, yeah, I take out $2,000 a month. I take out $5,000 a month. Sometimes I take out, sometimes I don't take out. And I'm like, no, you need to get yourself on payroll. You need to like guarantee that you are going to pay yourself, no less than $10,000 a month, because why are you doing this then? What is the point in owning your own practice if you're making less than you would as an associate in someone else's firm? You wouldn't have this headache of like figuring out what to charge, doing consults, trying to sell people, listening to podcasts like this to like grow your practice. Like you could just go be an associate. So like if you're
Life
going to
would
go
be
down
easier.
the road, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. If you're going to go down the road of business ownership, you have to pay yourself. that is non-negotiable, and not just like a flimsy amount so that you can say, oh, look, Nermin, I paid myself. No, I need to see your gusto, your paychecks, whatever you're using. I need to see that being at least $10,000 a month on what you're paying yourself, because anything less is just not fair to you and how hard you're working.
Right. Yeah, we don't see those numbers very often. I guess like people that we see in our business, they're larger outfits. Like although we do have some solos with staff who are very successful, they definitely pay themselves much more than $10,000 a month. But it's
Good.
interesting. So you talked about, and I was going to ask you, what are the main like three, four levers for adding six figures to your already existing business? So lever number one is increasing how much you charge, which I absolutely love. I think it's a great idea. Last week on this podcast, I had Mark Powers, the president and founder of Atticus, and he talked about positive constraints, right? So you create a positive constraints as to like how many clients you can take on by increasing your prices. But the
Yeah.
first hurdle to overcome is actually like attracting those prospective clients, because if nobody's knocking on your door, chances are when you're really hungry, you're going to take whatever comes through the door, which is the first hurdle to really overcome is getting that demand and then justifying a higher price. I want to add another little dash on that dish, and that is some of our clients do this exceptionally successfully where they raise their prices or they only take on certain type of clients or certain type of cases, and everything else goes to their neighbors, to their peers and other law firms, and they do revenue share, which
Yep.
is a very profitable model because I'm not going to drop any names, but we have clients for whom marketing that we do for them is a business within the business. As in, it creates positive cash flow. They pay us X and they get 4 times X, not
Mm-hmm.
because they practice law with those clients, but because they send them to their neighbor, figuratively speaking.
Yep.
So it's definitely a business within the business. So the first lever, just keep in mind as you're listening to this, like your first lever is always increase your price. And you can test it in the market to see what market will bear. Like
Yeah.
like would people stop hiring you? But you have to have good positioning. Like why are you 20% more expensive than
Exactly.
another attorney? And that one is really difficult for attorneys to usually like to nail down. Why would someone pay me 20% more? But in marketing and psychology, there's actually like a simple answer. And that is some people just want to pay a reassuringly higher price because they perceive it as a higher value.
Yep, exactly. I mean, the my favorite example that I use is, do you shop at Walmart or do you shop at Target? The same products, the same prices off, or different prices, same products, different prices, totally different shopping experience, right? And when you kind of put it into perspective for them like that, then they're like, oh, you're right. Like, I don't remember the last time I walked into a Target. I always go to Walmart, or I don't remember the last time I went to Walmart. I go to Target, right? Like, you have these people who have like their specific ways of shopping, and that is exactly how their clients respond, right? Is like, they want to pay more because that they drive a Mercedes. They don't drive a Mazda. I drive a Mazda, but like that's just how people, want to approach
Mhm.
things, right? Like, they see luxury and it's like the perception of luxury. And what I've noticed is when attorneys charge too little, I see people being like, why are
Yeah.
you charging so little? Like,
Yeah.
why are you charging $150 an hour when the next
It's
person
got to
is
be bad.
charging 300?
Yeah, it's got to be bad. You're not getting hired because of that. It's interesting that you brought up the example of Walmart and Target because about 5 miles from where I'm sitting right now, I'm recording this at my home office in a neighborhood that's called Buffalo Grove, Illinois, which we're north of Chicago. Across the county line, like one street that's called Lake Cook Road, there's Lake County and then there's Cook County. Across the street, there's a Walmart and there's a Target.
Yeah.
Like they're directly across the street from each other, and both have been there for many years, and
Mm-hmm.
both do very well.
Yep.
So you would think if everybody was just going for the lower price,
Yeah.
Target would be long out of business.
Yep.
Long out of business. Well, like, why would you even open a Target there directly across the street from Walmart, which arguably probably has 5 times the merchandise volume? It's a larger
Yep.
store and
Yep.
probably 20-25% lower prices.
Yep. Exactly.
That's fine.
Exactly. It's just how people identify their themselves and how they want to shop and how they perceive themselves. Like, I'm a Target shopper. I'm a Walmart shopper. I like rollback prices. I like the meat at Walmart or whatever it is, right? Like, it's that sort of identity that we build. But exactly, my one of the biggest things that I tell attorneys is think about how you shop for products. That is exactly how your clients are shopping for products. So, when was the last time you wanted to hire someone to build a website? Did you Google it or did you ask for a referral? Then they're like, oh, okay. Like, I do ask for referrals a lot for these things. I went into a Facebook group. I emailed 3 attorneys that I know who I trust about who built their website. Like, it really helps them understand, like, how do you shop for products? And then that's exactly how your client is shopping for products. Like, when was the last time you bought a car? Did they give you like the premium package and then the premium plus package? Like, what pulled you toward the premium plus package versus the premium? How did they present it? They put it on a piece of paper and they said, here's ABC, right? That's exactly how I tell estate attorneys to do their pricing is ABC, right? And one of my favorite things about pricing is I heard this on another podcast, but it was like, how do you sell a $3,000 watch? Well, you put it next to a $20,000 watch. Now that $3,000 watch looks cheap, it looks affordable, it looks like the deal. So, how do you sell a $5,000, $10,000 estate plan? You put it next to a $15,000 one.
Yeah. But you should also be ready to answer the question, why are you more expensive than someone else?
Absolutely.
You should have like one or two advantages. And I don't mean differentiators. I hate that word. Like, what's the advantage of hiring you? Like, why is this going to be better? And you have to have the answer to that question ready to go. Okay. So the first lever to increasing your personal income. Again, we're only talking about personal income. We're not talking about raising revenue, increasing revenue. We're talking about personal income. So the first thing is increase your prices. So it's really simple, like really ridiculously simple. Increase your prices. If it's going to be a negligible increase, like 10%, most of your prospective customers are not even going to notice. If it's going to be substantial, 25, 30%, you're going to get fewer clients, but you're going to make more money. Cool.
Absolutely.
What other levers are there in law firms that could easily increase personal income of the owner or owners by 6 figures?
So, one of the things that law firm owners tend to do is they tend to hire in the US and they tend to hire full time staff, and they will oftentimes have more full time staff than they maybe even need. So, the other lever that you can look at is your people cost. Most law firms, it's anywhere from 30 to 50%. And it just depends on the size of your practice, where you're located, all of that stuff. So, one thing you really want to look at is who's on your team, who is who is maybe not doing 100% of the job that you hired them for, who is doing only 60% of the job. I see a lot of people who have in-house marketing people, and I always say, like, you could probably outsource that to a company like yours, Sasha, and like get better results than having a US based marketing person who's charging a US salary plus you're paying taxes on top of that, right? So I do a lot of like financial analysis with my clients, and I always say when you hire someone, it's 1 times 3 or 1 times 4, right? Like, so it's them plus an additional 30 to 40% because you've got taxes, you've got overhead costs, you're now paying for,
Sure.
additional software for them, all of that, right? So it's 30 to
That's
40% higher.
oh, 30%, 30 to 40% on top of what you're paying them. Got it. Yeah, 100% agree. And what do you multiply that total by?
So like whatever their salary is, so if let's say they're $100,000 a year,
Yeah.
multiply that by point
Okay.
3 or point
Got
4,
so
depending on,
140.
yep. So
Okay.
130, 140 is your
That's what they actually
actual
cost you.
cost.
Okay.
That's your actual cost of the employee. It's
Got it.
not the $100,000 is
Yeah.
all I
Yeah.
have to pay for them.
Yeah.
No, it's actually 130.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I find attorneys don't factor that full
Yeah.
number in,
Mhm.
and that's really what you need to be thinking about is the true cost of hiring someone new. So if I'm looking at, we talk about levers that we can pull up. This is a lever you need to maybe look at pulling down. Who's
Mhm.
on your team? who's maybe got a repetitive role? Can you outsource the role to a company like yours,
Hmm.
or can you outsource it to someone who's abroad, right?
Sure.
Whether it's in the Philippines, whether it's in Latin America, wherever that is, right? Like those are the things that you should be thinking about, especially when you start getting into the $500,000 revenue range, because it's almost like you don't want to be shackled by the costs. And these costs can definitely shackle a lot of law firms from being able to grow, because they probably want to spend more on marketing, but they can't because they have too many high operational costs when it
Yep.
comes to, their employees. So that's a second one that I always look at, is like, how much are you spending on your people, right?
Yeah.
Are they too high? And can we just readjust a little bit on your org chart to help you save an extra 15 to 20% every month? Ends up being an extra $100,000 a year, if not more than that.
Easily. There's another, and this is what we practice in our business. Um, this may not sit right with you when you just start doing it or when you even think about it, but every day, at the end of the day, my direct reports send me a short video, up to 5 minutes long, what they got done today.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day. Because of that, and at the beginning of each week on Mondays, my executive assistant, who is based in the Philippines, she's amazing, amazing, incredibly educated, speaks perfect English. Cost me $30,000 a year. Here it would
Amazing.
probably be like $120,000 a year for that level of quality of person. And she's really happy that 30 grand a year in Philippines goes in probably further than 120,000 would go here in Chicago.
For
So
sure.
everyone wins. At the beginning of each week on Monday, she tallies up certain like milestones that my direct reports accomplished the previous week. I know what their capacity is, and I know how much of that capacity is filled.
Yep.
So like I know that, for example, like there are two reps that are in the same position, they do the same thing, and they need that redundancy, but both of them operate at 45% of capacity. I just
Yep.
can't let one of them go, because if I lose one and then another one doesn't come to work because they're sick or something else happens or they quit, I'm screwed. So
Yep.
yes, I'm keeping that redundancy while knowing that there are two people doing job of one. But I
Yep.
know it's a decision.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. And there's the awareness of it, and then there's the compensation for it, probably, right? Which is
of course.
like, that just means that you're going to close an extra deal, or you're going to increase fees, or whatever that is, right? Like there's that awareness of like, I know that this is how my org chart looks, right?
Yeah,
So it's definitely part of the awareness that is a big deal,
yeah.
especially for law firms at that like 500,000 to a million level.
And the bigger you get, the more important this becomes. Like really well optimized law firms, I've seen them. They run their cost of service, COS, on their profit and loss or income statement are at about 37% of revenue,
Awesome.
which is an awesome number. But for most, it's 50% or
Yeah.
greater. That 13%, if you think about, here's about a six-figure lever. If your business does $1 million, only $1 million in revenue, it's a very small law firm. Million is actually, $1 million is really difficult. So, but if your business does $1 million, and you find a way to cut your production costs, your cost of service, from 50% to 37%, that's 130 grand toward like your profit. Subtract taxes from that, there's your six figures.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
What's another common lever that you could pull on?
So this one is going to be a little controversial, but
Let's do it.
I would say that the next lever that you can pull higher up is the knowledge one. So if you are a law firm owner, increase the knowledge of what it takes to actually run a business and to run your specific kind of practice. So I see this happening with a lot of attorneys, which is they will compare their practice area, which is a fee for service, like a flat fee kind of business, to someone who is on a contingency model. And the truth is that contingency attorneys, personal injury, some that do like maybe insurance, other kinds of insurance, malpractice, anything in that range, even entertainment attorneys who take a percentage of the contract. Like, let's say you're working with a celebrity and they sign a $10 million deal, you're taking 3% of that deal, right? Like, you as a whatever fixed fee, flat fee, hourly attorney cannot compare your business to that business because they are completely different models. And it just doesn't work. I see so many attorneys who are like, well, my buddy I went to law school with is making $1 million a year. And my question is always, what's their practice area? And it's always personal injury or some sort of contingency fee. And the reality is that with contingency fee, you can get 100 leads that come in and 5 that hire you, and one could be a trucking accident case that's a $5 million case. Guess what? That's their $1 million revenue right there. But you, as an estate planning attorney, would at $5,000 per estate plan need to do that math. You need to do 1 million divided by 5,000, and that's how many estate plans you need to do. And if it's just you, that's, I think, 200 estate plans that you need to do. But if it's just you, you are not doing 200 estate plans in a year. So you cannot compare that. It is apples to oranges. So up your knowledge lever on your own business model based on your practice area. You cannot compare your practice to a contingency fee practice. But if it's two PI attorneys who are comparing each other, no problem. Compare away, right? But if you are an hourly rate business attorney trying to compare yourself to the entertainment attorney who's making money based on percentages on contracts, it's not going to work. It's totally different models.
There's so much to unpack in what you just said, and everything that you said I agree with. But the one thing that really comes to mind is, if you are going to go, and I'm going to use this analogy, if you're going to, you have a child, and this child is 4 years old, and you could see that they're very athletic, and you could choose what sport they're going to go into. And you want them, if they develop to that level, actually become like top of the top, creme de la creme, the top 1%, like Olympic level. Like, what sport would you put them into? You can choose, because they do not show like any natural inclination toward this or that. Like, you could put them into like track and field, they'll be a runner. You can put them into basketball or football or swimming. And all of those careers, if they become that creme de la creme, are going to pay differently. So if you want your child to work with it, by the way, it takes just as much effort to do track and field, I'm sure of it, right? To become like an Olympian runner as it does to become like an NBA star.
Yep.
It's the same grueling regimen with so much training, so much parents' time and energy and money going into this, et cetera, et cetera. So if you were to look at like the financial outcome, playing in an NBA is going to have very different outcome than swimming.
Yep.
Or doing running. Like, those things don't pay. So I always wonder, like, if you are an attorney, and especially not just practicing attorney, but you have your own law firm, like, I ask them, like, how did you decide on this direction, on this practice area, or that practice area, or that practice area? And it's often not by design, but by default. I was clerking for, or I worked in this law firm. So it just shows that when you talk about like increasing your knowledge, like really increasing your knowledge, the one area of knowledge that I see attorneys are often working on is increasing their professional knowledge. But if you own a business, the knowledge that I think you really should be increasing is your business acumen, which will not come from becoming a better attorney. It will come from becoming a better business owner. And by the way, the example, like, I know lawyers who do estate planning and they make $1 million a year. Not doing estate planning, but being the CEO of their estate planning law firm. How does that work? Well, it's a professional service corporation, right? You practice law. A well-managed professional service corporation is going to produce about 20% net profit pre-tax on an annualized basis. If you do $5 million in revenue, you're going to get $1 million or 20% in net profit, and you're going to pay yourself as the CEO a market rate of about $300,000 to $400,000 for doing the job of a CEO. The one thing that you cannot freaking do at the same time is do estate plans.
Yep.
Somebody's going to run the business.
Yep. Exactly.
So speaking of
Exactly.
controversial things, and and they're like $5 million. I'm like, yeah, well, it's 1,000 cases at
Yeah.
$5,000 a pop. Are you telling me that in your market, whether you're in Atlanta or Chicago or Miami or any other sizable market, there aren't 1,000 estate plans to go around annually?
Mhm.
It's 50 times more than that.
Oh yeah,
Like,
easily.
like you're just not getting your market share. That's all there is to it. And
Mhm.
that's where business acumen comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's actually like taking on like the last lever that I'll share here, which
Oh, yeah.
is uh, I often see attorneys who focus on one channel of marketing or one channel of revenue growth or one channel of attention that they'll pay to,
Yeah.
whether it's one networking group or they're just on Instagram or they are just on YouTube or they are just doing, their blog, whatever that is. My biggest advice is you have to sort of be on not all the channels because there's way too many channels, but you can't just rely on one channel. So you need to like increase the lever of marketing channels that you are on, because if you're only getting leads from one source, whether it's a networking group or it's your Instagram, you don't control Instagram. That algorithm could change. You could lose all the leads that you're getting. Like, you really need to make sure that you've got a well established 5 to 6 sources of marketing that you're doing every single month. And this is why I say, like, outsource it, hire it out, right? Like, you don't need to be the one who's writing your blog. You should not be optimizing your own website, right? Like, you shouldn't be managing your own Google My Business page. Like, you should hire people to do that. And when you do, like, you will start to see that the number of leads that you're getting in, number of qualified leads, number of people who are ready to hire you is going to go up significantly, just because you are now on more channels, right? Like, it makes more sense. If were running an ad on one radio station and then you start running it on 4 radio stations and then you add in TV, like, that makes sense, right? Like, you're obviously going to have more leads coming in. But the same is true for law firms, right? When I ask them like what kind of marketing they're doing, they're like, oh, we get a lot of referrals. And then I'm like, okay, but what
So,
do you do? Do you have client appreciation events? Do you give gifts? Do you have a blog? Do you actively have community events? Like, are you doing any of these things? And they usually look at me like, no, we know that we should. We've been thinking about doing a newsletter, and I'm like, I just laugh.
it's the
I see you
norm
laughing too, Sasha. It's just
because it's the
like,
norm.
yeah.
But so whenever you may be watching this episode or listening to this episode, a few weeks ago, I interviewed Brian Chase, incredibly successful attorney. His episode is coming out probably in 2 weeks, like early May, early to mid May 2025. Look him up. I don't know what episode number it's going to be. But well, I asked him, Brian, what are the doors through which your prospective clients come through? And he's like, we have 10 different doors. We always do 10 different things in marketing. And it's not that one thing works better than another. They all work together.
Yeah.
They all work together. And the truth of the matter is, nobody thinks about that. Legal business, marketing business, consulting business, any and all of our businesses, we rise or fall with the lead volume.
Yeah.
It is a lead game. That's all
Mhm.
there is to it. Every business is there to serve customers. If you want to make more money, if you want to sustain your family, if you want to have a good living, it's leads that convert into customers that pay you money so that you can pay yourself and pay your employees. The end.
The
It's that
end.
simple.
That's It really is. It really is that simple. It's a lead game. You're absolutely right.
Great insights. Nermin, somebody watching this, listening to this episode, and they're thinking, like, I wonder what other levers can we pull on or push on in my business and my law firm. And by the way, before we hit the record button, you said that you don't just find problems and you don't just design solutions. Your company actually implements those solutions, which sounded like music to my ears because I know that most people would rather not actually like implement these things. We would rather do what it is that we do on a daily basis, which for lawyers is practicing law.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for law firm owners, most law firm owners, it's the same thing, practicing law instead of practicing business. But somebody's listening to us and they're like, oh, maybe this lady can help us. How do they connect with you? Where do they find you? And what are the right questions to ask you when they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Nermin Jasani. You can email me, Nermin at wearews.com. You can go to my website, www.wearews.com. I'm sure all of this will be included in the show notes.
Yep.
But absolutely, LinkedIn is one of the best places to find me, or you can send me an email. I have access to my email. No one checks my email. So even if you go in there and tell me all the things keeping you up at night, that's totally okay. But that is actually one of the things that you should be asking is, how ready are you to move forward? Are you ready to actually take on a consultant? Because, people think, oh, I'm going to hire a consultant and that's it. And it's like, no, then you actually have to change your prices. Then you have to start saying no to certain clients.
Yeah.
You have to get comfortable with saying, oh, I charge $15,000 for this thing, right? And that oftentimes makes people feel really uncomfortable. So it's almost like ask yourself, are you ready for a consultant? And also just ask yourself, like, is this really going to be the year that you meet your financial goal? Every year I talk to attorneys and they're like, yeah, I want to hit 2 million. I want to hit my 5 million. I want to hit 500,000, whatever that number is. And they have it as a goal, and it's really nice to say, and it sounds really nice when you say it to yourself, but then there's no accountability and there's no follow through on that. That's where I come in, right? Like, I'm absolutely going to make sure that you hit those goals, but it's not going to be pretty in the process, right? Like, that's why they say growth isn't always ugly. It's growing pains, right? So just ask yourself those questions. And I'll definitely want to know if they're working with a good marketing company, because that's super important too. Where are your leads coming from?
Yep. 100%. By the way, WS and ws-lawyers.com stand for Wildly Successful Lawyers.
Yes.
I love that name.
Thank you.
Nermin Jasani, thank you so much for being part of the show and sharing the insights.
Awesome. It was great to be here, Sasha. Thank you so much.